Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a rare episode of Sports Betting Truth. And today I'm going to create a tier list on the best ways to make money when it comes to betting on sports. So without wasting any more time, let's get in. So this is a tier list I made, and we are going to add all these ideas that you can use to bet on sports and see how they rank when it comes to making money. Some of them are better than others, but I'm going to place them in one of these 5 tiers. The first one being quit your day job. I believe this is a thing that you can do when betting on sports that will make you loads and loads of money hand over fist. And then next we have not a bad idea. And then after that, it can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Followed by not a good idea. And then finally, just flushed your money down the toilet. And so the first thing I'm going to do is talk about using sports knowledge. So a lot of people think that they can just use the knowledge that they think they have betting on sports. And the thing is, when it comes to betting on sports, everybody thinks that they're like the smartest people in the room. They know more than everybody else, which is why so many people sign up to bet on sports. It's why they do it, right? And so a lot of people tell me, oh, you played college football, so you must be pretty good at betting on college football, right? Wrong. The thing is, using sports knowledge or sports smarts or whatever is that, it's not going to get you anywhere. So if you rely on this solely to bet on sports, you're going to have a bad time. And it's why I'm going to place this one in the just flush your money down the toilet category, because there's really no way to quantify that. In order to win money betting on sports in the long run, you really have to quantify a lot of what you're doing. And there's really no way to transform your basic sports knowledge into measurable statistics that you can use to beat these books and odds makers in the long run. And so the next strategy we're going to talk about is what I call eyeballing. You'll hear a lot of people say this. They say they'll sit down at a sports book or they'll pull up their app and look at the odds board and they'll be like, oh, that looks like a no-brainer. Like they say they can just pick out the lines that are off, that are free money, that they can just tell, like almost like their gut just says, you know what, that is a mispriced line. I'm going to bet on that. The problem with eyeballing, though, is it's very much like using sports knowledge, is that it's rooted in a lot of confirmation bias, and there's really no way to quantify what you're doing. If you just rely on just like looking at the odds board and eyeballing, you're not going to do very well, because again, you're going up against very sharp markets, very smart odds makers, very efficient markets, and you really think that your gut is going to outsmart those people. I don't think so. So this is also going to go into just flush your money down the toilet. Next, we have a step up. People say, I'm just going to study the stats. I'm going to do research. Like, people are going to research and just study like they're studying for a test, but instead they're going to like look at the box scores, look at the statistics, watch game film, that type of stuff. Do their homework, so to speak. But the problem with studying the stats is that it's just like using sports knowledge. It's just like eyeballing. How can you quantify what you're doing? Like, you could sit there and study all the box scores and stats that you want, but ultimately you need to quantify that. And if you don't, you're just going to fall victim of your own internal biases, whether you recognize them or not. And more often than not, that's going to lead you to the slaughterhouse. And besides, when we're talking about trying to find a game on the odds board that is mispriced, how are you going to efficiently study the stats for enough games to find out that game that's mispriced? It's just not a very efficient way to do things. You're just going to fall victim to your own internal biases. There's no way to quantify it, and therefore in the long run, there's really no way to make it work. So I'm going to put studying the stats in the just flush your money down the toilet tier. Next up is going to be fading the public. Now, the problem with fading the public isn't that it's a bad idea, because more often than not, the public is going to be wrong. But the problem is the public isn't wrong 52.4% of the time, where if you fade the public, you're going to profit. They're probably wrong more like 51% of the time, so slightly more wrong than not. But if you just blindly do it, it's still not going to give you enough edge to beat the juice. And the other problem is, how do you know what the public is on? Like, there's really not a lot of trustworthy sources out there that are going to give you public betting data that's available. Some sites might give you like the number of wagers on each side, but there's going to be no reputable site out there that's going to give you the amount of money on each side. That information is just too valuable. Sportsbooks aren't going to give that out. And so therefore, there's really no way to know where the public stands. So I'm going to put this one under not a good idea. You're not going to make money doing it in the long run, but at least it's better than these 3 below. Next, we're going to go to chasing steam. So chasing steam is when you see line moving one way and you hop on the bandwagon. Say like a team is favored by 3 in the NFL, and all of a sudden they're favored by 5, and then everybody's going to say, well, obviously they moved from -3 to number 5 to -5 for a reason, right? So obviously this team's going to win by a lot if the line just keeps moving in their favor. The problem is by the time you jump on a steam bandwagon, the value has already been sucked out of it. You've missed the boat, so to speak, and you're getting a worse number than the people who made the line move in the first place got. And in the long run, you're not going to see enough value out of that, and you're going to not have a good time. So I'm going to put chasing steam in the just flush your money down the toilet tier because it's not a good way to bet. You're missing the boat. You're getting a bad number. Next, we're going to talk about betting systems. And by betting systems, I'm not talking about like a model or anything. I'm talking about betting systems in like the way you wager. Probably the most famous example of a betting system is going to be the martingale strategy, where you double your bet after every loss in order to win 1 unit. But the problem with that strategy is that eventually, if you keep doubling and doubling and doubling your bet, you're going to run into a bankroll issue where the amount of money you would need to bet to cover your previous losses is more money than you have, which is why the martingale strategy always fails in the long run, and which is why any casino or sportsbook will roll out the red carpet for you if you say you're going to use the martingale system. But unfortunately, a lot of people swear by this, especially when it comes to betting big favorites in sports like baseball. But no matter what betting system you use, somebody's thought of it before, somebody has tried it before, and it has failed before. If there was any betting system out there worth a damn, casinos would have either adjusted the way they have their payouts to counter it, or it would be banned. So you're not smart if you think you have some crazy betting system out there. There's a website called The Wizard of Odds that has, I want to say he'll give like $20,000 to anybody who can create a betting system that stands up to his mathematical testing approach that shows a profit over the long run. And nobody's claimed that $20,000 over the, I want to say 20 plus years he's offered it. So guys, there's no betting system out there that will win you money. So I'm going to put this in the just flush your money down the toilet category because it's just not going to work. Trust me, you're not smarter. There's tons of PhDs and mathematical wizards out there that could have come up with a betting system by now if there is one worth a damn. So this next one I'm going to talk about is trends. You see this a lot on stupid shows and on Twitter and from touts, where they'll be like, Team A is 10-1 in their last 11 games against the spread, or the over has hit 9 out of the last 12 times on games played on turf in the afternoon on the West Coast. Like stupid trends like that. The problem with trends is that they're cherry picked. They have arbitrary start and end points to make them look a lot better than what they really are. So they suffer from short sample sizes. They suffer from recency bias, and they can suffer from outdated data. Like one of my favorites was like something in college football where like, I want to say it was Michigan State has covered the spread in 8 of their last 9 games against Michigan at Michigan or something like that. But when you look at the big picture, that's going back like 20 years worth of data. Like that's outdated, stale data used to make that trend. But the problem is that they're all pretty worthless because, like I said, the arbitrary start and end points, small sample sizes, and outdated data, there's no point. And the thing is, if the trend had any value at all, people are going to notice the value's already been sucked out of the market. So I'm going to put trends in the just flush your money down the toilet category. If you're using these trends, which you see a lot on these websites and from touts, you're going to lose your money. That's just how it is. All right, next up is middling. So middling is an approach where you try to get both sides of a line. Like, for example, you get a team +2 in the NFL, and then the line moves to -2, and then you play the -2 as well. So you're hoping that the score ends as a 1-point game, and if it does, you'll win both bets, right? And so middling actually is not a bad idea if you can pull it off, but the problem is a lot of times you're not going to get the line movement in order to pull off the middle. So it's a very rare occasion, and a lot of times you're going to wish you just stayed on one side, but it is a way to make money if you can do it consistently. The problem is you're just not going to get a lot of opportunities. Lines just don't move that way. So you're really, the only people that can really pull this off are the people with large bankrolls that can bet enough money to make the market move so they can get the other side. And most people aren't that. So I'm going to put this in the can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze category, because you're just going to be sitting around waiting most of the time. The opportunities are few and far between, and you're better off doing other things and constantly watching for middle opportunities. Okay, next up is parlays and teasers. There's a reason why sportsbooks advertise parlays so much. It's because it's their main moneymaker, because the bad odds in favor of the house and that disfavor the player are compiled in a parlay. So it's like compounding interest only with your bad odds for the player. Like I said, there's a reason that casinos push these so hard and the sports books push these so hard. It's because the odds are good for the book and bad for the player. There's really not much more to say. It's not a good idea. If you truly want to bet on sports, bet individual games at a time. Do not do parlays. And even worse are teasers, in my opinion, because teasers always look good on paper, but they never actually pan out. And the payouts are so much worse that I feel like teasers are even worse than parlays. So I'm going to put this one in the just flush your money down the toilet category. It is just not a good idea. Next up is promo and bonus chasing. It's really where you get a lot of incentives to sign up for new sports books, like risk-free bets, $200 deposit matches, stuff like that whenever you sign up for a new sports book. The problem with this is eventually you're going to run out of sports books to put your money in, and there's often a playthrough requirement until you can actually claim these bets. So even if you get a risk-free first bet, you're only going to get it once, and then you can't get it again. And if you try to keep claiming that offer, they're going to find you eventually and ban you. And bonus chasing, the problem with bonuses, like I said, is the playthrough requirements. And by the time you can actually claim that bonus, you probably lost all your money. So I'm going to put this one in the can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze category. There's only so many sports books you can sign up for until you tap that well dry, so to speak. The next idea is going to be following reverse line movement. So what that is whenever the line moves away from how the public is betting, it's kind of a fancy way of fading the public. Like, for example, if a team is getting like 85% of the wagers as a -3, but then they move to a -2 instead of a -4, that's reverse line movement. The problem with this is the same problem as fading the public. There's just not a lot of good websites and outlets out there that are going to give you that data on how the public is betting for it to be useful. So how do you truly know if it's reverse line movement or not, unless you actually have inside information that the sportsbooks have that know where the money is going? So for the most part, it's just a guessing game. And so I'm going to put this one next to fading the public. Not a good idea just because the data is not there. Next up is exploiting low volume markets. Now, like 5 to 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been a bad idea. When I say low volume markets, just games that a lot of people aren't betting on. Like everybody's going to bet on NFL on Sundays, for example. Those are high volume markets. But an example of a low volume market would be like mid-tier, low-tier college basketball on a random Tuesday night, Japanese tennis, Turkmenistan handball, like games like that where just not a lot of people are going to be betting on, so therefore the markets are going to be soft. Like I said, 5 to 10 years ago, this might not have been a bad idea, but with the sports betting as mainstream as it is these days, there's just not a lot of low volume markets left out there, and you still got to know what you're doing. It's not like it's free money. You still got to have some kind of approach that you can quantify to know what a good bet is in these markets. And so that's the problem. It's like, who truly has the time to come up with a system for Saudi Arabian high ally, right? Nobody. To where you know when you're making a good bet. So I'm going to put this one in the can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze column because, like I said, who has the time for that? Next up is going to be fading bad teams. You see this a lot. People are like, never bet on the Washington Nationals in baseball or the Chicago White Sox. Just bet against a bad team and you'll always win. The problem with this is that the books know that a team is bad. It's priced in. It's not like every game is a -110 coin flip money line play. Bad teams have their prices baked in. I mean, for that reason, when a good college football team plays a bad one, I mean, that's why the spread is -40, and you often don't even see a money line. It's because, come on, If the lines were always the same, yeah, it would make sense. But otherwise, this just isn't a good idea because everybody else has that idea too. I'm going to put this one in the just flush your money down the toilet category. And for the same reason, tailing good teams also going in the just flush your money down the toilet strategy or category, because people think, oh, it's a good team, just keep betting on them. They're always going to cover. They're always going to win. You'll win in the long run. Again, this might even be worse than fading bad teams because the public loves to bet those good teams, which is always going to maybe misprice the line a little bit. Just not a good idea, guys. And then this one I see a lot, especially in college sports or any sports where there's like two good offenses and bad defenses playing against each other. Like I want to say like when Texas Tech and Oklahoma, when Pat Mahomes and Baker Mayfield were the quarterbacks for those two teams like 10 years ago, they played each other and everyone was like, oh, bet the over, bet the over. Guys, odds makers aren't stupid. If the over was 50 for every single game, yeah, this would make sense. But the odds makers are going to set the total to what they believe would happen if the game was played a million times, what the average total would be. That's what they're going to set the total as. They're not in this to give away money. So just blindly playing the over when two good offenses play, or blindly playing the under whenever a bad offense like Iowa football plays, it's just not a good idea. And I'm going to put this one into just flush your money down the toilet category. Next up is watching shows like Fox Bet or Daily Wager on ESPN. The problem with the talking heads on these shows is just they're not very smart. They're in the marketing business. They're not in the business to make you money betting on sports. These personalities are all about marketing. They don't know what they're talking about. They are not sports betting experts. They don't have fancy models or algorithms or approaches or inside knowledge or anything like that. They are not special. They are just good at marketing what they do. They are not good at what they do. They are just good at presenting like they know what they are talking about, but trust me, they don't. Clay Travis, Aaron Dolan, Cousin Sal, all those personalities you see on these shows don't know what they are talking about. They don't. I'm going to put this one in the just flush your money down the toilet category. Next up is tailing a hot Twitter or Instagram handicapper. So on social media, you see these people a lot. Posting their picks and everything on how good they're doing betting on sports. The problem is that these people are a dime a dozen. I guarantee you a lot of them are running multiple accounts and they're going to heavily promote their accounts that are doing well. Like if I were to create 100 Twitter or Instagram accounts and bet on sports with them, surely one or two of them is going to go on a hot run at some point, and then I can just shut the other 98 accounts down and create 98 new more until I get another one that goes hot. That's the problem with this, is that with the thousands and thousands of Instagram and Twitter handicappers out there, the odds are that there's always going to be a few of them that are hot at any given time. It's not because they know what they're doing. It's just the law of averages says that's going to happen. And the thing is, most of them are trying to turn tout. So if any of them has any kind of sustained success, they're going to lock their account behind a paywall, turn tout, and make you pay for those picks where they're run of luck is going to go out. They're going to regress to the mean, and they are not going to be a profitable follow anymore, and now you've lost money by paying for access to their picks. So I'm going to put this one into just flush your money down the toilet. All right, next up, arbitrage betting. So I have made a lot of videos on this subject, and I'm not a big fan of arbitrage betting, mainly because I think it takes a lot of effort to make it work. You got to have a lot of money to spread across multiple sports books, and you got to really have a active eye to find your arbitrage opportunities. But with sports betting becoming more and more mainstream, there's going to be less and less opportunities to arbitrage. Sportsbooks know where they are weak. They know where their arbitrage weak points are, and they're going to compensate for that more often than not. And if they feel like they're on to you when it comes to arbitrage betting, again, they're not stupid. They're just going to ban you and probably take your money. So the problem is that the opportunities these days are fewer and fewer. It's harder and harder. You have to spread your money across so many books. It's almost not worth it. So I'm going to put this in the can work, but juice isn't worth the squeeze category. Most of the people on YouTube that claim they make money betting on sports who aren't touts do it via arbitrage betting, but it's kind of like card counting and blackjack or playing a 101% video poker playback machine. It's like it takes so much effort to make it work, and yet the ROI is so low. It's like, why even bother, right? And then we have 2 left. So next up is going to be building a model, which is what this channel really revolved around when it was back in its peak. The problem with building a model is that it takes a lot of work, and you got to have a lot of knowledge of statistics, data science, math, and all that. I mean, that's the field I work in professionally. And I have made sports betting models in the past, most of which were not successful. Some of them were, but even the ones that were only successful for a limited time before I felt like they lost their value and time kind of passed them by, so to speak. And so it really took a lot of work to make those models. And the hardest part about making a model, period, is data. Data is not cheap. It's not easily accessible. And that's really the biggest hurdle you have to climb to make a model, is data that is complete. It has to be a complete data set, and it's going to cost you a lot of money to get that. There used to be a time and day where you could scrape it, but that's harder and harder these days. That's the problem with building a model. Huge time sink. It's not guaranteed to work. Data is very hard to access. So I'm going to put this in the can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze column. Trust me, I've been there. I mean, I built this entire YouTube channel on the concept of sports betting models. I had a few that were successful for a short time, but most of them just didn't work. And hours of effort put into it for not a lot of ROI. And then finally, probably the one you guys have all been waiting for, paying a tout, paying a professional handicapper, whatever they want to call themselves. I think it's pretty clear if you've watched videos on this channel before where I fall when it comes to touts. Basically, they're never worth it, no matter how good they say they are. Most touts don't know what they're doing. They are all about marketing themselves to make it look like they know what they're doing and nothing more. Very similar to the Fox Bet and Daily Wager shows. Those people don't know what they're talking about. It's the same with touts. You think a tout is someone who's like constantly has their head deep in the weeds, studying the games, watching film, having sophisticated models, inside information, all that type of stuff to make them successful. Trust me, none of them are. They are just run-of-the-mill people that are out to scam you and market themselves like they know what they're talking about, but they don't. Trust me. There is no reason to ever pay a tout. Just watch the other videos on this channel when it comes to touts to understand more about that. But obviously, I don't think this is a surprise to any of you guys who have watched a lot of my videos. This is going in the just flush your money down the toilet tier. And so that wraps up these 20 approaches to betting on sports. As you noticed, I didn't put a single one in quit your day job or not a bad idea. I put 5 in the can work, but the juice isn't worth the squeeze column. Basically, the moral of the story is sports betting is a really bad idea if you're trying to make money. The only reason you should ever bet on sports is to have fun for the same reason you would go to a casino and play a slot machine or a roulette wheel or blackjack. The odds are against you. You're not going to win in the long run. You're doing it for the entertainment value alone. That's the only reason you should ever bet on sports. If you ever bet on sports to try to make money, a side income, a full-time job, whatever, it's not going to work, guys. Don't do it. I've always told people the best way to bet on sports is to not bet on sports at all. And with sports becoming more and more mainstream when it comes to betting on them, it's going to be harder and harder to win in the long run, because the more mainstream it gets, the more resources the books are going to have to employ ridiculous algorithms and odds-making approaches to where there's just no value in it. So that's my advice. Don't bet on sports, but if you insist, expect to lose. And that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this tier list for strategies on how to bet on sports. I will see you guys next time.